A BB5 family. I'm your host, Busara. Welcome to Warriors Over Weasels. Got a beautiful topic today. Ugly situation. So I'm gonna just get right into it because time is precious. Every second. And if a problem remains long enough, it becomes clever. Yoruba proverb. Say that again. If a problem remains long enough, it becomes clever. Yoruba proverb. How many centuries has white racism held back humanity? And how long will we allow for this unnecessary setback to be our reality? We must adopt a mindset that not only does not fear death, but one that embraces it in a way that protects and prepares our children and future progeny. And our fearless approach toward death won't be because we are a group of deranged suicidal lunatics. It will be the result of a culture that views birth, death, and rebirth as a part of a inevitable journey. Viewing life as a constant process that's only interrupted by natural tragedies or man-made destructions will dramatically reshape our destiny and generational living conditions. We must utilize a culture that values the physical life as being more or equally as important as the afterlife. A culture that places sacrifices over selfishness, and a culture with a focus on the immediate future but with a greater emphasis on the distant future generations. Because life in the physical world is the only life we know of that exists. And life will continue to exist after our death in this physical world. So we must view protecting the lives of our people in the physical world, present and future, as top priority. And by protect, I mean by more than mere hand and weapons training. I mean healthy lifestyles, vast environmental knowledge, political prowess, distinct as well as beneficial economic practices, and a culture and spiritual system that breeds bravery and justice keepers. We need a culture that views the killing of our children as unacceptable, with harsh and gravely consequences being handed out exclusively to persons who kill any of our children before they can reproduce. If we viewed the senseless murders of Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, the life of Yummy Sandifer, the innocent girls killed in the Birmingham bombings, and countless other young children and teens robbed of life by whites or non-whites before they were able to reciprocate life, as the ultimate unforgivable crime. To take a man or to take a woman away from their family is one thing. But to take a child who is yet to build a family away from that is the ultimate crime. That is genocide. And that is the equivalent of killing 50,000 people at minimum per child that is murdered or sterilized before they have the chance to reproduce. We must view life differently. We must come to grips with the preciousness of life in a communal as well as a generational process. We must realize how many people walk this earth who played a part directly in our creation. Remove one person out of your direct ancestral tree and you don't exist. Being killed before you had a chance to reproduce, being intentionally sterilized, tricked into morally accepting abortion, or anything that prevents the return of our ancestors through healthy man and woman relationships shouldn't be taken lightly. We must understand the rarity of this thing called life we have on this thing called Earth. Traveling at speeds averaging at about 38,000 miles per hour, it took Voyager 2 12 years to reach Neptune. Now, Neptune is considered the farthest planet from the sun. And as far as we know, life only exists here on Earth. That means no music, no love, no childbirth, no parenthood, and no childhood. None of the things that make us human exist anywhere in our solar system but Earth. And if there just so happened to be life anywhere else besides on Earth, it would take hundreds of thousands of years to reach there with anything created from NASA or SpaceX. And even longer for them to create it. A spacecraft that's large enough, fast enough, and that could travel long enough for a small settlement of people to live for countless centuries as they travel nonstop on the riskiest trip ever to a planet that may or may not be hostile towards outsiders. I mean, that's the distance between us and what may be out there when we're talking about life. So knowing this fact places beyond measurable value on each and every life, on each and every evil deed, and on each and every second of each and every minute. We must remove ourselves from the everyday hustle and bustle we are currently trapped in so we can understand we are not here to pay utility bills, property taxes to governments that stole property, and whatever else this society has tricked us into viewing as being responsible citizens. Life is far too rare, irreplaceable, and far too precious to waste a fraction of a second towards doing anything that's unproductive and of no use to the future. This society, by creating functional illiterates and non-thinkers, have manufactured a people who undervalue their worth and underestimate their uniqueness. And these miscalculations are the reason why we aren't preparing for the future in a persistent and consistent way. For centuries, black people who have come in contact with Europeans have allowed Europeans to control the most important areas of life, from food to the spiritual systems, to the value of our products, to the value we place on our own lives. We even use their standards for beauty, intelligence, and success. We must recognize using their definitions to explain our situations and using the majority of our time to accomplish their goals is not only holding us back, but humanity as well. When black people stand up, oh, how the mountains move. We have an organic influence on the world that should not take the backseat to anyone, or that should be dictated by anyone besides ourselves. The direction Africans must move towards over the next century should be the direction we must travel for survival and for human advancement. As long as we are following Eurasian engineers, scientists, politicians, and religious leaders in ways that caters to Western society first and solving our issues never, we are setting up the atmosphere for our genocide. As long as we see no need to have certain institutions, organizations, programs, etc. that cater to the sole advancement of African people, we are putting our survival in the hands of those who have historically and currently destroyed us. The most important thing we should focus on in this century going forward is that we are at minimum 600 years behind. And the eradication of this multi-century, multi-generational stall-out we are currently in must be top priority for at least 25% of our race. We are at the point where we can no longer allow the lower self of black African people to be the face or the driving force of our people. We have been manipulated into proud poverty, arrogant self-hate, sexual liberation without true liberation, and Stockholm Syndrome. And we would be better off collectively euthanizing ourselves than to allow a future generation to inherit what we are currently planning for them to have in the next century. Will our children still call human traffickers forefathers? Will the hood still be the hood? Will Yorugu control the content of majority of the school curriculums? What will the cost of living be? Can we truly say racism will be gone? Will the men care if they are with organic women or not? Will the women value marriage with a man? Will childbirth be restricted? Will black people still fill prisons and cemeteries with youth and young adults? Are we seriously going to leave this? What is the word I want to use? Conundrum to our children and their children's grandchildren. Are we going to let the foully planted seeds of Eurasian individualism and materialism set up our bloodlines for servitude and slaughter in the far future? How much do we respect the rarity of life, and how much do we understand our duties to be those who push forward rather than being those who are pushed along whatever direction does not benefit us? That's why we hold up Harriet Tubman or any other warrior who refused to go along to get along, that thought about more than self and who put in that generational work that will be felt long after they expire from the physical world. And that's our generational work to do. To do work with no intention of gaining individual fame or material rewards, just the intention of results. We must address our problems, and we can't expect anyone else to do anything but add fusion to the already present confusion. If they solve the hood before we do, what will be the result? If we don't fix the derogatory culture aimed at our youth and young adults, who will, and who will it benefit? Will we continue to allow humanity to be held back by unwavering Machiavellian tacticians, or will we do whatever is necessary to plan and protect for the future? I want to read a quick page from a book that any serious African warrior should be reading right now. It's a daily book, a daily read, a page a day. It's called A Calendar of Revolutionary Daily Thoughts. For Wise Words is actually the name of the book. I'm not going to butcher it because I haven't put in my work to learn my African language. So I'm not going to butcher it. But I am going to read the passage. And it's from March 11th, for March 11th. Each one's dated. And this quote is, "Our work has only begun. Our race must strike the blow if they would be free." Ida B. Wells. Let me talk about Ida B. Wells real quick before I even go even further. Our work has only begun. Now think about that. For a lot of people who talk about what our ancestors died for, our work has only begun. And they didn't have any trap music back then. No crack, no crackheads, no meth heads, ice heads, all of the stuff we have in our community today. So she said, our work has only begun. So that quote in itself can be taken so many different ways. It could just be saying, yo, we're just getting started. Or it should let you know that, hey, we may have had a win, but a win against this enemy it's just a win of a battle. Isn't a win of the war. It's only begun. She didn't say we won. So, just got sidetracked to talk about Ida B. Wells real quick, but I'm going to read the affirmation that lines with this quote. And this is written by master educator Walimu Baruti. "We are at war and have been at war with Europeans and every other aggressor against our children, selves, ancestors in spirit for over 4,000 years. And since the battle is still raging, we must defend our children by preparing them to fight with the will and commitment of those Africans who entered the battlefield to engage our enemies from the start. War is waged on every institutional front. We battle our enemies spiritually, intellectually, economically, politically, and in the home. No institution has a monopoly on the battlefield for the sanity and physical safety of a people. Knowing this and knowing that, out of misdirected thought and fear of retaliation, we have consistently placed every institution before that of the military. We need to reconsider the military's role in our liberation. The military side of our relationship with others who have standing armies, which they readily use in maneuvers against us, should never be subjugated to a drive to attain peace at any cost. We must build our armies and prepare our children to man them. We must prepare them not for the slave mentality that fears death for any reason, but for a liberated mentality which willingly sacrifices its physical existence to ensure the geopolitical, economic, and cultural solvency of the seventh generation after them. A powerful and dedicated military is a necessary institution and instrument to this end. And the affirmation after the passage he wrote is, I am preparing our children for the front lines. Military front lines. Scholastical front lines. The medical front lines. We out here preparing our youth to carry on. Because as our ancestors said, our work has only begun. And that was, she's only been dead less than 100 years. And I would like to say we have a lot more work to do. They had black economies when she was around and black towns with high morals. And she was saying, our work has only begun. Maybe she was a visionary. Maybe she knew that the enemy was relentless and they weren't going to let this cash cow called melanated people go without destroying them first. And until the next time, I'm your host, Busara. This has been Warriors Over Weasels, a BB Fahodie family.